from the vault, high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Talking Catholic. This is Mary McCusker, Talking Catholic co-host, and I am joined today with Mike Walsh.
Hi, Mary. How are you?
I'm all right, Mike. I just was outside. It's 102 degrees out there, and I'm going to level with you. I'm feeling real sluggish today. The heat has gone to my head.
I absolutely feel your pain. I was at one of our Catholic schools yesterday. We were shooting a video about the reopening of the school year this year. And I had forgotten just how hot schools are in the summertime. It was noon. Fortunately, we did most of the recording in one of the air-conditioned parts of the school, which made life a lot easier. But then we had to do some walk and talks in the hallways, and then we walked outside. I was soaked in sweat within a few minutes, and we did it for about 45 minutes. I was like, I cannot wait to get back into the air conditioning. Oh boy, it is stifling.
It really is.
This is my least favorite time of year.
I think it's coming to an end, though. This was like a pretty strong heat wave. Yeah. We had the power outages, the storms. The storms are the only good thing about heat like this. But hopefully by the time our listeners hear this next week, it's not going to be a stifling 102 and humidity.
Man, I tell you, that is rough. But, you've had a tough couple of days. Your little puppy is
don't make me talk about that on here. I have had a sick pup at home. Yeah. That's my Ollie. I've had him for 2 years now, and this was the first time he was really like sick, beyond the normal puppy sick. So that has not helped because I've been awake all night with him, and I told you this earlier, but it's just one of those reminders. How can I ever have kids? This is my dog, and I'm awake all night and crying and wishing he could tell me what's wrong.
Sounds like a typical millennial. I can't have kids. Dogs are too tough.
No. It's a labor of love, but the good thing is we're actually joined by millennials on this podcast today, Mike. So that makes you the oldest.
I am by far the oldest.
And you're outnumbered here.
I am. But don't worry, I'm a Gen Xer. I can defeat you all. I know I do, and I've been spending a lot of time around young millennials lately. So I'm baking bread and all sorts of weird stuff that millennials do during a.
Just have to talk about your dog some more because that
I love my dog. I can talk about my dog. My dog Molly. I got a great dog. She's a yellow lab. She's wonderful. She's a little nutty. Not quite as nutty as Ollie, but she's a little nutty. But she's a little older, so she's getting into that lazy lab status. My favorite level of
nice Labrador. Calm energy.
Exactly. Although she was tearing around the house last night, which was funny. But yes, so this is typically in the past been one of my favorite episodes to do, all about young church. Mm-hmm. However, I'm not so sure this time. One of the guests is great, and then the other one is Jose Rodriguez. So I'm not sure what to expect out of it, but for anyone who
Don't you say that about Jose, one of my favorite people ever.
Thanks, Mary. So, Jose, what is your official title now?
So officially, from what I understand, I am the Director of Youth, Young Adult, and Campus Ministry for the beautiful Diocese of Camden.
Yeah, and you have been sort of taking on more and more responsibility since your predecessor left last year.
Yes.
And I think they finally bestowed the director's title on you, which has been great. And actually, I feel bad because you used to be one of my office mates, and now you've moved to the building across the street, so I don't see you any longer. But it has been nice because now I have less people bothering me in my office, so that's always good.
He was always the most welcome distraction, though.
That is
Jose
true.
popped in, you knew you were going to start laughing, or,
That was like the nicest way of calling me a nuisance. You're like the nicest distraction.
Now, with us, in addition, is someone I only met actually this weekend when I was doing another video shoot with Jose, Cristina Velazquez. Did I say that right?
Yeah, it's Cristina Velazquez.
Okay. Jose and I had this great debate, mostly just me messing with him, because he said your name once before you came on, and then I said it a different way, and then the debate was which way was the actual correct way. Mm-hmm. And I'm happy to say that Jose was correct. Oh. Jose pronounced it properly. So, Cristina, how long have you been part of sort of like the young church movement in South Jersey?
I've grown up in the church. I went to St. Francis of Assisi in Vineland from kindergarten, first and second grade. So my family's just grown up in the church. I went to school in the church, and every Sunday participating. My dad's an usher, my mom's a lector, I was an altar server, so very involved.
And now you are in college, right?
Yes.
And you just finished your nursing degree?
Yes.
Okay,
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Perfect timing, too. I think there's a lot of work for you to do out in society right now.
Plenty of work for me.
So, as someone who's in your early 20s, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you've run the gamut as a young person of faith, right? I guess really the question I have for both of you, and maybe I'll start with Jose. Can you define young church? I know it's kind of an open question, but we hear about it all the time. But really, what is young church?
That's funny. You want the USCCB answer, or do you want
Webster Dictionary,
Jose's
please?
answer?
This is a podcast.
That is a really open question, Mike, and one that we hear a lot, so I'm curious to see.
So I think if we're not... So besides what the USCCB says, I think young church encompasses those people that are young in age, but also young in spirit. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, Mike... on a rare occasion, you would be considered young church.
Oh, whoa, that's pushing it just a little bit.
I'm old in face, but young in spirit.
No, I think young church is more of a what do we call them now? A vibe.
A vibe.
It's a vibe.
I like that word. Okay.
Young church is more of a vibe, whereas it really just encompasses the young people that are movers and doers and that really are not only hungry to learn about their faith, but are hungry to live it. Mm-hmm. So they just push themselves to the limits of learning and being like sponges, but at the same time, not only being a student, but teaching others and wanting to be part of what church has to offer. So if I had to define young church, that was a good one, because I never really thought of trying to define it, but I think that's the best.
I think you're probably right. I think that is really the best representation for young church, because we've had a lot of things in this diocese, but in other dioceses as well, that kind of geared towards young people that I always found to be the most interesting parts of our faith. Like, this is a nationwide program, and we used to have it in the diocese. We haven't been doing it as much lately, but there was this thing called Theology on Tap,
mm-hmm.
which is, young people would go to bars, and you would have, like, spiritual conversations. And I always found them, I guess I went to my first one in my mid-30s, but then when I came here as a director of communications, I would go to report on it and stuff like that. But that was where I kind of felt most comfortable and most
mm-hmm.
welcomed, was in a very relaxed setting. And I've talked about it on the podcast before that in my own young days, it was my group of other fellow youngish Catholics that really kept me involved in my faith when there was the greatest likelihood that I might shift away from it. Mm-hmm. So I would absolutely agree with it, though I am curious, what is the USCCB definition?
Yeah,
well, I don't know, so for young adults, I guess they really, because youth ministry is youth ministry, but then it's like young adult ministry is 18 to 35. So 18 out of school. Yeah. 18 still in high school, you're still considered like youth min, but 18 out of high school to the age of 35 is young adult ministry. And then after that, it's, just
old people ministry.
Yeah, basically.
Seasoned people like you, Mike.
That's right.
The oldest guy at the bar at Theology on Tap.
I was definitely the creepy guy.
But you were right about that. I've went to a couple myself, and I have to admit, I'm sorry, Jose, I was kind of worried. I hadn't met a lot of the people in the young adult ministry, and I was just thinking, what do I really have to offer? I'm not sure what I'm going to talk about. I went. It was at Tiernanog, which is across the street from where I grew up. And it was just like a lively conversation. Mm-hmm. The people I met, like whatever anxiety I had beforehand, just went away. People were just so engaging and down to earth and just, put my mind at ease. And, it's a good time.
I think that's the thought process for all the young adults that come to Theology on Tap before actually getting there, is like, all right, this is weird. We're going to do like church at a bar.
I said, am I going to have to say a prayer? Like, what do I have to do to prep myself?
Can I actually have a beer, or is this a tease? Like,
can we do shots? What's the deal?
How far is this going? Like, and I think I remember the first time that, Greg asked me to accompany him to a theology on tap, and I was like, I don't know what are we doing? Like, I don't get it. Like, are you sure that this is like, is this actually a thing, or are you pulling the leg of the new guy? Like, and again, like, we showed up, and it was fantastic to see. I think it was like maybe about 35 young adults all jammed into a room at a bar. Having
this is
appetizers.
Before COVID, by the way.
Yeah, way before. Jammed into a bar room, having some beers, and then just talking faith and what it meant to them, and what it looked like from their eyes, and how could it be better and stuff. And I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So I think those those feelings that the pre-theology on tap feelings are a common thing. Yeah. But once you get there, it's decent.
Well, what about you, Cristina, as the resident young person who actually is a participant in these things? Over the 20 some odd years you've been an active member of Young Church, what really has it been that you found entertaining and intriguing and spiritually uplifting about being a part of events like this?
Oh man. I think every event I go to brings something different, I'd say, and I really feel like it's the people I encounter the most, because you encounter people my age. We work with the Young Church at Summer in the City, but I'm also surrounded by older people at food pantries who go there every week, or we go to the nursing home and I'm with the nurses who have dedicated their lives to those people. So I really think it's the people I encounter at the different places I go to that makes me see Christ in different ways.
Yeah.
So you mentioned some of those activities. Is that all part of this, for lack of a better word, program? Visiting the nursing homes. Is that part of service projects that you guys do? For Summer in the City specifically, we do a bunch of things. We do nursing homes, we do food pantries, we do clothing drives, we do all of it. But for me personally, just the things I've gone to with my family and my community, I'd say range a lot, because I've gone with, like I said, little kids, and I've also gone with adults. So the things we do differs. Yeah.
And maybe just to go back a little bit, maybe we should talk about that program, because the other reason you're on, in addition to talking about Young Church, is this year's Summer in the City program, which is a program that's been going on for years, but this is because of COVID. This is the first time it's going to be done virtually. So, Greg.
Wow. Not for nothing. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been the highlight of my week. That in itself is an honor, and I am glad that just happened.
That's right. I referred to Jose by his predecessor's name. I don't know where that comes. Greg,
you miss
I
him.
hope he listens into this.
Greg, if you're listening, that's how good a job Jose is doing so much. So now.
Look at him. He's getting emotional.
Big shoes to follow.
You two have been replaced by somebody younger. Anyway. Greg's doing great now. He's out in the Diocese of Cleveland. He's working in ministry there, and we're very proud of him and happy for him. And he still keeps in touch with you from time to time, right?
Often, very often. We talk often,
So in your new job, Jose, so the Summer in the City program, it goes back years, but can you kind of define what it is?
So Summer in the City is...
He's looking up the definition, everybody.
I have to write these things down.
He literally has a cheat sheet in front of him.
Yeah, that's not fair.
So
we're supposed to be putting you on the spot.
Too. No. So I knew this was coming, so I prepared. Service, community, social justice, and spirituality, and then it's based in the Gospel of Matthew 25:40. What you do for the least of my brothers, you do for me.
It's one of Mary's favorite passages.
Mm-hmm.
It's her
guiding. Our guiding principles at Catholic Charities.
Oh, there you go. See how we're all just... See, that right there is just proof that we're all in the same mission, just different branches.
Right.
And we all choose to get there differently. But it is the work that these young people do. That's the most amazing thing, though. If I had to highlight one thing about Summer in the City, it is a fact that you get this number of young people in high school, some that were in the program before and then aged out and come back as junior advisors like Cristina. And then you have some adults that serve as counselors. And it is just a week during their summer that they give completely of themselves in the most uncomfortable, like, way. Like, so we just started using, last year I think was the first time that we used the Kairos Retreat Center down by Holy Spirit High School. But prior to that, we were staying at the school. I don't know if anybody else...
Did it have air conditioning?
No.
Oh, okay.
No air
now I
conditioning.
see what you mean by uncomfortable.
No bedding, right?
Yeah.
So, like, we would use the classrooms. So the accommodations,
humble.
Yeah. So, but it was amazing to me to see so many young people just be willing.
Yeah.
Just willing to say, all right, well, I got my sleeping bag. Where should I park for the night? Like,
yeah.
All right, you're in classroom 210. And just the whole situations, the food, like the way that we would do food is, we'd cook and we'd have food, but you never hear anybody complaining about, I don't know if I'm going to eat that, like, I don't like that or anything like that. Like, it just becomes, from the first night, just a whole community of just young people ready and excited and on fire to do service for other people. And then at the end of the week, it's like, it's a sob story. There's tears and there's, I don't want to leave. Can we do something in the winter? Like, no. So, like,
You do bond during stuff like that, though.
And
being together for that long, you're in it together, and
So, like, I think Summer in the City, it just helps keep the young people themselves just grounded.
Yeah.
And, like, it's a real, like, reality check almost, where it's like, I am willing and happy and love doing for others who really need the help.
Mm-hmm. Can I back up for just a second? So, Summer in the City, is this part of a national initiative? What was kind of the genesis of this in our diocese? When did it start?
Oh, Mary, that's not on my cheat sheet.
Yes, that's what I was going for.
You got me. I know that Summer in the City has been around for a while. So there was a time where it was Summer in the City in Cumberland County, and I participated, and it was out of the retreat house in Violin, and then we came out to Atlantic County. So when did it start? Couldn't tell you.
Yeah, it's been around for years, and it's had a couple different iterations. There was a few years where it was actually done in two different cities. It was done in Atlantic City. It was done in Camden City. And it sort of moved around a little bit. And I know in the last couple of years they really focused on of just having it be 1 week and really kind of consolidating it. So what they really wanted to make sure was that there was a real sense of community and having everybody together rather than splitting it up. There was a theory at the time that splitting it up would actually have brought it to other areas. But what they found was it was better to bring everybody together.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Yeah, and I'm curious, Cristina, in your time as a participant at Summer in the City, what were some of the things that really stood out to you that you really enjoyed doing? Maybe not projects, but interactions, things of that nature.
There's a lot, actually. So, like Jose said, when you get there, it is very, like, you're nervous and you don't know what to expect, but you're excited. Like, you're going to serve for 5 days, and not everyone gets excited about that, but everyone in that room is. Yeah. And so, that's really cool, is just meeting all the people that go to different schools, and they already have friends that are going, so meeting all the kids. But some of the exciting things, what I would say, is the service projects. Obviously, we go to meet the people, we serve with the people, and leaders in those communities. We meet people that from the churches in Atlantic City who always serve these people, who know them by name, and it's nice to meet them and know their stories as well. But other things that I get excited about is like Taco Tuesday.
Oh, okay.
Taco Tuesday is a big
that was
deal.
Part of it.
It's a very big deal at Summer in the City is Taco Tuesday.
I would make fun of that, except that. So I never got to be a part of any youth activities like this when I was your age, because they didn't exist. But when I went to college, I did Habitat for Humanity, and we did a week in Western Kentucky, and I loved it. It was probably one of the highlights. It was, without a doubt, the highlight of my collegiate experience. Low bar to reach, but it was definitely the best part of being in college. And I met some great friendships and had wonderful times. And I loved being part of the service. But it's funny that the thing I remember most from it, much like you, or maybe not
if you're
quite
about
like
to say
you.
Taco Tuesdays.
Nope. Sausage and gravy. So We had a guy that had gone through culinary school for a brief period of time while he was still a college student, and he had learned how to make homemade biscuits and sausage gravy, and I'd never had it before. And I found out that it's actually the greatest thing on the face of the earth. And now when I go to places that offer sausage and gravy on biscuits, I will get it every time. And I will always remember back to my time at Habitat for Humanity and how meaningful it was for me and what a wonderful trip it was. So I am a big proponent of people, much like what you were saying earlier, not necessarily young people, but young people at heart, having activities and opportunities like this. I mean, if you're a 48-year-old man like me, there are things you can be doing where you get to go away and stuff like that. I don't necessarily recommend you necessarily look for ones that involve children because, we don't do that. But the other stuff, I mean, look for these opportunities. You don't have to, don't feel like you've aged out just because you're no longer considered young church. But if you are young church, you definitely should look for opportunities like this because it really is. It's great for your spiritual well-being, but it's really also great that you're partaking in things that will educate you in ways that you wouldn't have been educated in any other way about what the world is really like.
Right, and in our backyards too.
So close to home. I think that's the point that hits a lot of these guys really, really hard is when they realize the need and the suffering that is right here. So I remember one year, I forget who it was, came up to me after a service site, and he was just heartbroken. He's like, Jose, I'll never forget that. He's like, Jose, I had no idea. I had no idea. Like, I could literally walk out my back door, and this is right here.
Right.
And I said, well, that's not necessarily your fault. And mainstream media and stuff like that, we highlight other places, right? You never really highlight your own, or you look farther away than your own backyard. And I said, sometimes we just got to take a look at, like, right outside the window and see what's going on.
That's such a good point. I just read an article about, service trips and how oftentimes, I'd say more in, like, the secular world, they involve traveling overseas, right? And, of course, there's poverty, the likes of which we don't see in this country. But, like you just said, it is also in our backyard. You don't need to travel across the hemisphere to see what poverty really, really looks like. It's all around us. In every county, that's something I've noticed at Catholic Charities. It looks different in every county, right? There are, tent communities of homeless people in, the woods of Vineland that you just never thought would be there. In Atlantic City, every place is different, So how do you guys go about picking the location? I'm curious. So this year, it was virtual, but in previous years, you said you've kind of jumped around, right?
Yeah, the office has managed to have a good networking with directors of different programs, of nursing homes, some of the religious in our diocese. So, for instance, like the CFR Sisters at the Benedict House in Atlantic City, that's an obvious go-to. Or people here at the office that we connect with. We do a beautification project at one of our cemeteries. So, we call the person at the office and say, hey, can we set this up? And she meets us there. So it's really just forming relationships. Or we'll be at one service site and there'll be a group that's volunteering there also. And we feed off of each other. Like, what are some other places you guys go to around here?
That's neat that you get to meet other groups too.
So it's it's kind of just having conversations and networking, and then reaching out, calling these places and saying, hey, I have a group of young people that every summer love to help and are willing to do whatever you ask them to do, any way they can help. It's rare to find a place that say, we don't need any help. That's almost never happens. This year was a little bit tougher because there was a lot of places where we just couldn't get into because of the current situation. A lot of high risk. So nursing homes, for instance, just weren't happening. A lot of soup kitchens have not been working. So what we did this year was just kind of reach out to some parish ministries and see if they were working and what they were doing, and if can I have one or two young adults, some of our junior advisors, go out and give you guys a hand? And they were like, yeah, no problem. We'll make it work. And they did. And I think this year we were able to grasp the essence of what is summer in the city. Granted, it's never going to be what actually living it and doing the work. It doesn't even come close to in comparison. But at least we were able to we're going to be able to see that, and we're going to be able to witness it and see what it looks like. And I think differently this year, getting to hear from the junior advisors that are actually doing the work and listening to them and how it made them feel is something new to some in the city also.
Because that virtual, I had, actually Mary and I both had the opportunity to help you a little bit, and Christina at one point. So your virtual Summer in the City this year was pre-recorded. We actually went out, and John Kalitz and myself and Mary went out to a bunch of different events that you were holding where you had your junior advisor come out. And it was kind of, I got the impression that what we recorded was with the idea that to encourage people, even on their own in their own communities, that there was stuff that they can do. So what were the things that we recorded?
So we did go our first recording, the first video we went to Atlantic City, like I mentioned, with the CFR sisters, and we were with the Chip and Connor Wimberg, and they were there for the breakfast line. So the sisters and volunteers there pack bags with breakfast goods, trail mix, bagels, stuff like that.
This is for homeless populations in Atlantic City?
This is for the homeless population in Atlantic City. They come.
And not just homeless, actually. Homeless and
people in need. Yeah. So the boys did, they worked with the sisters, and that's one of our regular spots. Like that's one of the places we go to every year. And the work varies there. Sometimes you're working with the homeless and the vulnerable, or sometimes the sisters have you going through clues, separating clues, or they need a wall painted. So the work there varies. You're there. If you go to the Benedict House, you're going to work. But they're awesome.
You think that flexibility is something that young people have? Whatever task comes their way, do they jump on it?
No, 100%. And I think it's a surprise for them. Like, when in the morning when the kids arrive at the beginning, we break them into families. Usually try to do with people they don't know, so it's a whole new experience.
Good idea.
But when they get to when they know in the morning that they're going to the Father Benedict house, it's a surprise. So like if we say, okay, family, I don't know, the Red Rockets, they get to pick their own names and they get to come up with the whole thing.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. So, all right, the Red Rockets, you guys are going to go to the cemetery today. They're like, all right, we know what's going to happen. No surprise there. But then he's like, all right, we're going to the Father Benedict house. And everyone's like, oh, dude, I wonder what we're doing today. Like, I wonder.
We would even start to ask each other.
Yeah.
So like if a family went on Monday, if I knew my family's going on Tuesday, I'd ask the family, what'd you do today? And they'd be like, oh, we gave out food to the homeless. And then I'd be like, oh, we're probably gonna do that. And then we're scrubbing the pews inside the Father Benedict house. And we're fine with it, but we're like, this isn't what you guys did.
Yeah. So they're fun. The sisters really they hook it up at the Father Benedict house. They give these guys work, and I think it's awesome. So that was one place. Then we went gleaning. So we hooked up with Christina, yourself, and Catholic Charities to go gleaning in Salem County. Now, for those of you that don't necessarily know what gleaning is
that your notes?
Yeah, he can't get his iPad to start up.
No. So basically, it's you're going out to the farms, and these farms have opened their imaginary doors, right, to the volunteers, and it's basically picking up. Yeah, because what farm
doesn't have imaginary doors? Of course. You want to fire up your notes? I don't mind. I'll wait for a second.
I can help you out with this one if you want.
Well, for people who are listening, gleaning comes from the Bible.
Yeah.
Or it's referenced in the Bible anyway.
Leviticus.
That's right. I wonder where you learned that.
A wise man once told me. But it's going to get, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mary, but produce, so fruits and vegetables that are maybe left over for whatever reason, the group goes out there and they can go through those fruits and vegetables and pick out what's still good and what can be given to our brothers and sisters that may not have access to fresh fruits and vegetables for any number of reasons, right?
Right. Yeah.
Essentially.
produce that hasn't already been commercially harvested. It's there, it's a surplus, and it's just a matter of gleaning, going through, huge buckets and baskets and, figuring out, okay, what can be salvaged, what can be used. And there's plenty of great fruits and vegetables that are still good and people can still use. It's just having, the hands, the people, the manpower to sort through it all. And, those fresh produce, especially in Salem County where gleaning always takes place, like that's a gold mine for people. It's expensive at grocery stores. It's in high demand.
And, there's a reason. Gleaning, and for everyone who's wondering, it's Gleaning. Gleaning is something that it's an ancient tradition, and more than a tradition, it was a law in ancient times, where you had to reserve 10% of your crops to be picked by the poor and needy in the community. And the key was, it wasn't charity. It was, as a landowner, you had a responsibility to care for the community, and the community had a responsibility to take it upon itself to go into the fields and actually remove, in this case, produce for themselves. And because they had to do it themselves, it isn't considered charity. It's considered good works. So the farmer is making it available, which is a sign of good works, and those who are in need are being industrious on their own and taking care of themselves and their families by doing it. And it's a beautiful old tradition.
I didn't know that, Mike.
Yeah,
look at you, filled with the fun facts.
Well, I had to look some stuff up for Jose over the weekend.
Great team. All those themes of Catholic social teaching just intertwining. There's just so much good stuff there.
Yeah, it's a lovely thing, and when I found out that the diocese did it, when Mary first started reporting on it a few years ago, because I grew up in that farmland of Salem County, and I don't remember anything about gleaning. My grandfather had farms, his father had farms. I'm sure they did it because they were good Christian people, not Catholics, not perfect, but they were good Protestants. And knowing them, they probably did do stuff like that. But I love the fact that it still exists. And you guys went to a couple of farms, right?
Oh, yeah. There was about
more than
4 or 5 different locations.
Yeah. And it reminds me, like you said, you don't really know exactly what's going to happen. The young adults who joined Erin and Yen, they were wonderful.
Yeah.
They just showed up. I didn't even know what farm we were going to next. But, we had a trail of cars and a truck somewhere, and you just follow the person in front of you, and you end up on this dusty dirt road in the middle of Salem with no reception, and then you're put to work. But they just went with it.
They did do great work despite having Mary distract them a bit with the tomatoes that were maybe just not good for picking.
That was John Kalitz, by the way.
So Mary was like harassing us.
I can't even begin to list the inaccuracies.
I was busy that day, and I was getting text messages left and right with funny videos and funny photos of people definitely embracing young church and youthful joy that comes with it. But no, see, I love hearing stuff like that, and I love the fact that it's offered through Catholic Charities. And Cristina Chillum, who helped run that, she's recorded as part of that video, and she goes into great detail about gleaning and the importance of it. But it's these little opportunities, going back to something you said earlier, that we never realize or are near us. And we live in a state that's it's the Garden State, and I think it's important that you realize that there are these opportunities and these needs literally in your backyard. When I worked for nonprofits prior to coming to the diocese, we ran a lot of homeless shelters. And I was stunned to find that there was a homeless shelter in my very suburban town that I never knew was there. Because I grew up in South Jersey, it's surrounded in trees. It was literally in this forest area down this long dirt path, and there would be this homeless shelter. And it's the prettiest homeless shelter you've ever seen in your life. Like, it would be a retreat encampment in any other format, but here it is, someplace for they service particularly young mothers, single mothers, and intact families. And it was broken up into 3 different things. But it's the most bucolic place you've ever been to. I actually asked when I was still hunting, I asked if I could hunt there, and they were like, "Yeah, sure."
Like just actual hunting of animals.
Bow and this.
What are you gonna?
I don't know. Hunting for jobs. I don't know what you meant by that. I was still hunting. I didn't know you were. Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
didn't know that about you.
Venison is delicious, and
It is.
I encourage everyone to get their own if they're
Mike
comfortable
the
with
hunter.
it. Yes,
The baker.
Nobody break into my home.
Oh my gosh.
But it is these great opportunities that we have. You know, it's funny. So my son is 12, and even we were talking about this from a spiritual perspective, but even in a secular way, I really try to make sure that my son is getting opportunities. We are very much middle class in our household, and because of that, you oftentimes are separated from how things are created. So, I make sure that not only does he watch a lot of educational stuff, there's a TV show I love called Dirty Jobs, and it's all about how the economy of the United States is really, the foundation of it is how all these things that most of us take for granted, whether it's,
anything on that show,
everything.
like naming anything, things you wouldn't even guess.
The cleaning out of sewer systems, or who hauls your garbage, or or how does electrical power get to your home. I mean, it's all real people. Oftentimes, people without college degrees who know these systems inside and out, and they learn through an apprentice program, and they are very much essential workers that we just don't get an opportunity to be around. So I like to. We all need to be educated in the real world.
Right.
So, and that's why I love Summer
in
City so much. No, I'm sorry. I just want to finish that sentence.
No, I'm just curious, and I guess this is a question for both of you, Cristina and Jose. But I've been a part of some of this service projects when I was younger, kind of more on the secular end, and a lot of them, you walk away, and the theme kind of in the secular world is we were helping people. We were doing it for people. Like what do you want people to get out of it? Is it something more than just, you don't want to swoop in and kind of just be the saviors, doing it's I kind of felt that vibe in some of the projects I've done. Again, more secular, but it's kind of like, yep, we went in and, it's almost like, well, it doesn't make us heroes. There wasn't really a sense of humility that seemed to come with it. So I'm just curious, what your thoughts are on that.
I'll share with what the hope is, and then maybe you can tell us actually what you got or how you felt. But the hope for us, for them, when they come to Summer in the City, and it's not to have that sense of entitlement, like I came to help you. Right. It's several things, right? We highlight to make sure that you see Christ in the people that you're serving. Okay, we want them to have an encounter with these people, get to know their names. If they want to share their stories, listen to their stories. Don't walk in front of them, but walk with them. And put yourself in their position. What if it was you?
Right.
How would you want to be treated? Would you want to be treated, or helped by someone who's like, I'm here to help you, and you need to take the help? Or do you want to be felt loved and cared for? So we emphasize that during the week to make sure that you love the people that you're going to meet, and talk to them, listen to them, and they get talked to often. Right. You're in the situation because of this, that. Okay, that's not what you're here to do. Talk with them. So there's that. The second thing is, I think it's for them to grow in their faith. Let it be a tool of spiritual growth. A spirit of gratitude, a spirit of giving, a spirit of understanding. The constant prayer for participants during the week should be just an invocation of the Holy Spirit to fill them with those gifts of wisdom and understanding and fortitude and patience, so that they can really serve the people that they're going to meet. And lastly, it's community. Understanding that everybody in that space, everybody that you're meeting, is part of your local church.
Right.
Granted, Some of us might be at one parish, which is down by the shore, and others up here by Cherry Hill, up here by the cathedral. But it's still the Church of Camden. Mm-hmm. So when you get to see those other people and you realize we are the church, not, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Not, we're the church 5 or 10 years down the road. No, we are church now, and this is what the Church of Camden looks like.
Yeah.
And when they see that and that thought process triggers and they start to work together, part of the week is planning on how can we do things at home and how can we be better at home. I love the conversations that say, well, maybe our parishes can get together and do something.
That's great. So it doesn't just end after a week. Mm-hmm. It's not just, you end there, you take it home.
That's the hope from The Office. Like, when I see them, that's what's going on in my head. I'm like, I hope they are grasping this. Now, Cristina, please tell me what is actually happening.
Is this true, Cristina?
I would say we do take that away. I would say, like you said, Summer in the City is very different than secular, just community service. Mm-hmm. You don't just go and help and do your part for the community. I feel like we're being the hands and feet of Christ. We really are, and we're not just serving these people, but we're listening to these people. Like Jose said, they've told us after we serve at a soup kitchen, sit down with them. Sit in between the participants and listen to what they are saying. Where are they from? What's their story? Not all of them are homeless, like we said. Some of them just need a meal.
Right.
We wouldn't know that if we don't sit down with them. The folks at the nursing home, sometimes we're the only visitors they get that entire year, and they're excited to see us because we go back to the same nursing homes, and they're like, oh, you guys are back, you have different color shirts this year.
Oh my gosh, that's a riot.
Yeah, we're like doing their activities with them, so that I feel like makes the difference, because we're not just doing the work and leaving. We are building community, like Jose said. We're meeting these people, we're learning their stories, and we're learning each other's stories. Mm-hmm. While we're all young church, we're all on different walks of our faith. We all go to different schools, we're different ages, we have different things we take away from the week, but I think like talking to each other and seeing where we're all at really makes a difference, and it's not just community service.
Right. And I love that distinction, and that's one of my favorite parts about the church, everything you guys just described. It's not just we're doing it for them. Everything you mentioned, that's what makes the Catholic Church stand out in my opinion, especially with young people.
Yeah, I was just having a conversation with some folks in my office this morning about, how the authenticity of our Catholic faith is what drives a lot of people to stay in the church, that they can actually see and touch and be a part of our Catholic faith, which, I've always thought kind of goes back to, literally the time of Christ, when Christ was very much amongst the people, when he was very much, with his disciples, but with the people, and he wasn't, if you look, he would go from town to town. He would move and move and move. And, that sense of, we refer to it now as missionary discipleship in the church, but it's really being a part of a very secular world as Christian people. And I think it's something that's maybe misunderstood, from people. I think a lot of times we get this impression that our faith only resides in the four walls of our.
That's what I was going to say.
Of our church, and boy, is that too limiting. I mean, don't get me wrong, and yes, the Eucharist is the source and summit of our faith, and the church is our home, but it's one room in our home. Yeah,
I think the best way to chalk that up is I think so many Catholics try to take the approach of trying to make sure that the secular world doesn't enter the church, right? It doesn't break through that barrier. We can't have the secular church or the secular world in the church, but we don't concern ourselves enough with bringing the church into the secular world. Mm-hmm. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, we're comfortable. We find ourselves complacent, being okay with showing up on Sundays and sitting in our pew, the same pew, every week. Even when you showed up after the pandemic and Father taped off that pew and you moved the tape because that's your pew. He said, Father, you got to rearrange this because you taped off my pew.
Oh my goodness.
And that's what I love about our young church. That's what I love about our young people, is that they're so willing to pick their pew up, right, in quotation marks. I saw you guys saw that, right? Quotation marks. They pick their pews up and they put them out into the world. And they say that I am so in love with my faith and I am so in love with what it stands for that I don't need to be complacent with just showing up on Sunday. I'm going to bring this to you. And I think that, they personify what Pope Francis said at one point, where he's like, he was talking to the pastors, he was talking to his priests, I need you guys to smell like sheep.
Yeah.
And a lot of them may have took it like, all right, well, we need to go roll around in a barn. No, get out, be with your people.
Right.
So
to the peripheries.
Yeah.
That's my favorite.
And it's a tricky thing. This is a strange world we live in, and I think the Catholic faith has been attacked a lot over the last 20 years or so in particular. But the way we fight off those attacks is by turning them into glancing blows, by being out there and doing good work, and doing it in a way that showcases, well, this is what real Christianity looks like. And I'm not putting good works ahead of good words. I think that they work hand in hand. Mm-hmm. I do think that there are Catholics who fall into those camps, and that's fine. If you're someone who finds your prayer life to be the most rewarding part of your spirituality, shoot, I'm not going to argue with that. I think that's wonderful. I wish my prayer life was better. Every day I wish my prayer life was better. I started this podcast by asking Jose to say a prayer, and Mary looked dumbfounded. She's like, I've been doing these podcasts for years. You've never did that once. And I'm like, I know. Well, I'm trying to be better at it.
Oh, well, now I feel bad. I'm
should.
sorry. I
No,
thought
you
you were
should.
just
You
messing
should.
with him
No.
and, putting
Mary.
him on the spot.
He said his prayer was too long, though. So
and then you
That is
continued
true.
to bash his prayer mic, so.
I also
she told you to think about what you were going to say before you said it.
that is true. But seriously, people, we're about to record a podcast. Keep it brief.
Oh, my goodness.
But it's true though. So there's our spiritual lives, and then there's the good works. And I think for most Catholics, having some sort of a balance between the two would be really beneficial.
Yeah.
Right. Especially for young people. That's what energizes them, harnessing that energy, sending them out there.
I have to give my wife a lot of credit. During these COVID times, she sort of organized a group of parishioners and parents from our parish and our school that my son goes to, and every Tuesday, all the kids, I'd say probably 9 to 12 kids, 7th graders and around that age, all go to the local parish, and I've been doing clean-outs of all the
That's
foliage
awesome.
and stuff like that. And it's been and little projects, and the Franciscan sisters have a convent near there, so the sisters, much like the CFRs down in Atlantic City, inquired as to if the kids could do a little projects, some projects at the convent, and they were like, "Yeah, of course, sister, we'd be happy to do
It's
that."
never a little project.
No, it's not.
You can't say no to any of it.
say no.
7th graders almost never get it right, so all the moms had to go after they were done and fix everything that they had did.
Funny.
But I love that kind of stuff, and I remember doing that when I was a kid. And I think that going back to something you've talked about, Jose, is I think we fall out of that after a while. We kind of get busy and we get older, and those things kind of fall to the wayside. And I think we have to try harder to do these good things, because the truth of the matter is everything that the Summer in the City kids do is so well received by the people they're supporting. It's so good. There's like no downside to it. It's good for the people who are receiving the help. It's good for the students themselves. It's good for the diocese in general and the parishes in general, who are getting back these wonderful human beings who have tried so hard to make a positive difference in the world, even for just a week. Even if they get out of this, it's always at the end of the summer. A lot of them are going to high school and college soon thereafter, so they're going to be very busy with all of their other stuff. But for 1 week during that summer, they had a very spiritual 5 days or 7 days?
5 days.
5 days.
Right.
And
they take it with
And
them.
it comes from them. That's the part that amazes me the most, is it comes from them. No one said, okay, you need to go do this, or this is a requirement for this, that, and the third.
You didn't have to badger anybody into doing it.
It is strange. We've had a lot of the kids on the podcast before. I think we've done 2 other Summer in the Cities, and we've always had sort of like had them around a big table like this, and we just have a conversation with them. And what amazes me is how all their stories are a little different. They all take something else out of it, or something different out of it. But how enthusiastic they are. I mean, like Cristina. I mean, everything that's been out of every time Christina's opened her mouth so far. First of all, I've been looking at the monitor. She's blown out the microphone like 6 times because she's so excited about it. But she's so enthusiastic about it. I absolutely love those things.
Yeah.
I bet you she's disappointed she didn't go to gleaning this year. Are you disappointed you didn't get to glean?
A little bit.
Yeah. So
There's always next year.
Thanks, Mike.
Apparently there was some tomato throwing that she didn't get the chance to participate in.
Oh.
Yeah,
Mary was
John
out of control.
Kalitz. I did not instigate there. That was all you guys. But I see they keep you young, Jose.
Oh, young.
You're still young, but
mentally, and I give you have to shout out Greg because he's still, although he's not present like physically among us, his joyfulness and that spirit that is Greg just lives with us.
Did we say Greg's last name at all?
Coogan, Mr. Coogan.
Yes.
Coogan.
But like the excitement that I get and the way that like I get prepared for what is Summer in the City is it's so much a mental, physical, and spiritual like preparation, because at the end of it, as an adult, you're just like, oh, that took every ounce of everything that I have.
Yep.
And you're just, but it's that like that good feeling of just exhaustion. Like it's
right.
Like you're exhausted for all the right reasons.
Yeah.
Like it's not like this. It's not like the same exhausted Mike and I get when we use the steps instead of the elevator. It's a different type of exhaustion.
A joyful exhaustion.
Not like elevator's not right.
Yeah.
So, in the short time we have left, now it's a good thing that I guess this year it's a virtual one, because you will not have expended nearly as much, since you now have to plan for a wedding. So congratulations.
I wanted to be the one to bring
You
this
should have
up,
been
Mike.
faster.
Tell us a little about it, Jose.
Your girlfriend of 16 years?
11 years.
11, okay.
Where'd you get 16? Yeah, right. Love her. We all love her.
So for those of anybody who doesn't know, living under a rock, but Star and I have been together for 11 years. So Star's one of the host of Keeping It Catholic, one of the shows,
the Talking Catholic YouTube channel.
Talking Catholic YouTube channels.
And you're going to join her as her co-host this year.
Yes, I will be joining her.
I'm just beaming from ear to ear.
Me too.
A lot of us all, a lot of the church met Star for the first time at the convocation, where in my humble opinion, and this is not biased at all, but I thought she rocked it.
She sure did.
She was amazing.
Yep.
She handled that panel very, very well. But that was like the first time that a lot of people got to see that side of her, and that was the side of her that I fell in love with 100 years ago. So we finally both are in a place in our lives where we were both ready to take this next step. Not because there was any like love lost, or it was like, oh, are we going to actually be together for the rest of our lives? But we just wanted to make mature adult decisions, and I think now was the best time to do it. So so we got engaged on her birthday, and
way to steal the thunder from her birthday, man. What the heck?
oh yeah, that wasn't important. Nobody celebrated. You stopped celebrating your birthday after 21. Like nobody.
I know.
So-
Each year I'm like, we could stop.
So we had a small intimate dinner. Her parents, my parents, my sister was there, her best friend Ashley, and it was funny because we were getting ready to have dinner. So I, for whatever reason, I'm usually the one that has to do the prayer of Thanksgiving for the food, but I took the opportunity, like I invited everyone around the table to kind of just.
Did they all know?
Yes. So
Okay.
everybody knew
Okay.
but her. And it was like, all right, so since we're in the prayer of Thanksgiving, let's, what are some reasons why you're thankful for Star? And it started, and like Ashley went first and could barely get 2 sentences out without crying. And I'm like, God, how am I going to follow this up? So I went last, and I was like, great. I'm thankful for everything they said. I must have thought about it like all week of what I was going to say. And in that moment, you completely draw a blank. So I was just like, I need to ask you something. And she was like, no. I was like,
oh, I can just hear saying
I kind of just, I dropped my head. I was like, you can't say no until I ask. Like, at least let me ask first. But then, I don't know. It was funny.
The video is hysterical. She turns into
a video?
there is a video.
I didn't send it to you?
She turns into a puddle.
Yeah.
It's outstanding.
Oh.
Yeah, he sent it to me. He must like me better.
Wow.
Those are tomatoes.
But as we wrap up, we wish you nothing but the best. You and Star.
Thank
we
you.
can't wait to have Star back.
Congratulations, guys.
Your
Thank you
show
so
is going to
much.
be starting up in September, so we know that's going to be great too. Cristina, thank you very much for joining us
thank you.
today.
Yeah, of course.
It was a pleasure. It was great meeting you the other day, and please keep Jose on his toes.
Try my best.
Keep them in line.
Looks like you might get lazy at some point. And Mary, thank you very much for joining us and keeping Jose on his toes with all those tomatoes.
It has been a pleasure. Whoa, no.
There it is.
I'm done.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much, and we'll be back again next week.